Welcome to another episode of Chat Sports Talk. As y'all know, my name's Chad. Take a dive on sports. And welcome to week 10 of the college football. This is my recap video where I go over, some of the games that transpired, how my picks did. I'll go over my updated Eliminator and my brand new PowerPoint index poll. It was a bad weekend for me. Before we dive into all my misery, if you could go ahead and smash that thumbs up for me, especially like content provider, really pleases YouTube guys, really help promote this channel out. You also subscribe. A lot of you guys review my work. Not many of you subscribe. It doesn't cost you a dime. It helps me provide more content value for you. Yeah, let's kind of go over this past weekend. I had like zero luck in anything this past weekend. The World Series, the one I picked for the win, got eliminated. Congratulations to the Houston Astros being World Series champions, for those that really care. I picked Phillies. Week 10 college football, I went 5-7, my worst week ever. NFL, I'm not doing that hot either. Right now I'm 500. So this weekend has been a bad weekend for me to pick games, and let's just go ahead and just dive into some of the highlights I really had in terms of picking these games. Well, or lowlights, depending on how you want to look at it. And we'll start this fiasco out there at South Bend, a Saturday night matinee between the Notre Dame Fighting Irish and the Clemson Tigers, who are fourth ranked in the college football playoff poll. They were poised to make another appearance. I've been saying this for 2 weeks. I don't believe in the Irish offense. I saw question marks about this offense. But for 2 weeks in a row, they took it to ranked opponents. So about now, them playing ranked opponents has also got them they're firing up. This is the first win against a top 5 opponent in overall almost a decade. They are buying in the system. They are living the dream right now. They stumbled mightily and early, and a lot of people question the hire, saying, well, that's what you get for hiring by race. Y'all forgot your hoods. The great defensive coordinator before you got that position, but they have stepped up defensively, offensively, and special teams. All three aspects of the game Notre Dame put forth was on point. Block punt. They went for a touchdown. They were throwing it. They were running it. The defense stepped up, and they were stifling Clemson for 3 quarters. Shut them out for 3 quarters. That fourth quarter, I think it was just a runaway. I think the defense got a little tired. The offense tried to do something. They benched DJ for Clemson and went with the freshman. His first pass gets intercepted. Go back to DJ Ugale. I don't know. This Clemson team right now is showing signs of flaws, and I think they've been exposed throughout the season. They've just been able to find ways to win it. At this last Saturday, they could not. As y'all know, I did pick Clemson to win this game because I didn't believe in Notre Dame as of yet, and this is a huge opponent for them. They stepped at the plate. They proved me wrong. And the Irish took it to Clemson 35-14. Get Notre Dame ranked once again. They went out to Champaign for another disappointing effort for the team I picked. This is number 16, Illini, hosted the Michigan State Spartans. Michigan State already had all these players suspended, all these injuries, so their depth chart is like scraping the barrel. Illinois is one of the best defenses in the nation. The offense is efficient. And it was for the first play. The first play of the game, or the first drive of the game, should I say, was the best the Illini did, and after that, it was all Michigan State. They hammered the Illini all day long. Chase Brown still had 136 yards on the ground, but he could not find the end zone. It's been one of his flaws this season. He can't seem to find pay dirt. He racks up all these yards, but never gets rewarded. DeVito spent too much time running away, getting sacked. Thune was just throwing dimes when he had to, and just feeling the flow, and just Michigan State walked into Champaign, upset the Illini, 23-15, and I've already started 0-2. Now we head to Arlington to Choctaw Stadium, where the annual Army Air Force game is being played at. In case you don't know, Choctaw Stadium is the former home of the Texas Rangers before they built a brand new ballpark down the road. This has been retrofitted to house soccer and football, and showcased these two service academies in an epic showdown to see if Air Force could clinch their first Commander Chiefs trophy since 2016. Right now, Army has retained that title. Since last year, everyone tied, and they won it back in 2020, so they still have it. And it was just a defensive showdown between these two, or just an offensive ineptness, how you want to label this one. But Army led 7-3 at the half. Of course, this is typical academy football, low scoring. They know each other very well. This is like two brothers going at it. But Air Force was able to come back in that second half, actually formulate drives, and actually got a touchdown to get a 10-7 lead, then a field goal in the fourth. But still give Army a chance to come back. Now all they do is march down the field, get a touchdown, make the extra point, and they win the game. Interception towards the end of the game. The final minutes of the game, Air Force intercepted Army, sealed the game. Air Force wins the title for the Commander Chiefs Trophy. Like I said, first time since 2016. And I was happy for my extended family members to actually win it, because I am retired Air Force, so a little bit biased on this one, but it is what it is. So congratulations to the Falcons for winning that one, and give me a victory. We head down to Athens, Georgia, where the Bulldogs were taking on Tennessee, where the roles were kind of reversed in terms of rankings. Tennessee was number 1 in the debut of the college football playoff. Georgia's number 3. A lot of eyes were on Tennessee, especially after how they handled Alabama and then turn around and beat Kentucky. So everyone's looking at Tennessee as being, okay, this is the team you have to watch out for. And everyone's kind of overlooking Georgia. Not this guy. Georgia has a wealth of experience, even though vast majority of the team that won the national championships already moved on to the NFL. But they still have quite a few pieces there from that team, including Kirby Smart and Bennett, to ensure that Georgia moves in the right direction. And the Georgia defense stepped to the plate and shut down Hooker. He barely had any time to really do anything. He got sacked 5 times. Most he's been sacked all season long. Georgia ran up to 24-6 halftime lead. Didn't look back. The second half was all defense between these two. That was all it was needed. Is Georgia beat Tennessee 27-13, more likely ensuring that they will be the new number 1 in the college football playoff here the next day. After I recorded this video and released it for you guys. But then gets me back to 500. Then we head down to Baton Rouge, where the LSU playing host to Alabama. LSU ranked 10th in the college football poll, while Alabama was 6th. I think LSU's rankings way too high. Too many other teams I think are better than them. And this is one where Brian Kelly was looking at trying to beat Alabama. He couldn't beat it in Notre Dame with his players. So he goes to LSU with Orgeron's players. And he went toe-to-toe with Alabama and Nick Saban. And Nick Saban, too many times, went for 2-point try. And he said at our conference, I'll have a chart for that. I'm like, really? You're Nick Saban, you have a chart for when you go for 2-point plays? No. I mean, I think that could have really hampered the aspect of this game, because if they would have done a couple extra points, maybe they forced LSU to do a 2-point play, and they could have stopped them then. But Wade Daniels was being phenomenal for the Tigers. Alabama had a hard time containing them. I mean, the first half was only 7-6. So you look, it was a defensive showdown between the two into the fourth quarter, and that's when the offenses took over. I think they just got a little tired. Tied 24-24, goes in overtime. And this is where Brian Kelly just placed everything on the table. After Alabama ended up scoring a touchdown in their first possession of overtime, it went to LSU. LSU got their play in, scored a touchdown. And Brian Kelly, it was like, well, we're going to risk it for the biscuits. And this is the time frame they decided to go for a 2-point conversion. Now, you won't do that until the second overtime frame, but they decided to do it now. It's like, well, we were going to win it or lose it here and now. And for college football, I think in this aspect, I think it actually works better. And I think a lot of coaches get praised for doing this time frame, going for 2-point conversions for the win instead of a tie or something like that. But they went for 2. They made it, as LSU gave Alabama their second loss of the season. This Alabama team is pretty bad. Right now, LSU is in the driver's seat for the SEC West. They already got a victory over Ole Miss. Alabama has 2 losses. So this SEC championship game is going to be definitely interesting, and possibly could allow Tennessee still have hopes to get into the playoffs. But time will tell how that one pans out. Then we head out to the plains of Kansas, where Kansas State was playing host to Texas. To kind of see who would kind of maintain their position as like the number 2 team in the Big 12 behind TCU. And Texas was favored in this one. I mean, Robinson is a phenomenal running back, and he did not disappoint. He had over 200 yards rushing and a touchdown. Martinez was the starting quarterback for the Wildcats. Struggled early. Kansas State overall struggled early, as Texas jumped out to a massive lead, 31-10 at the half. But Kansas just kept battling back. They were down to 34-27. They were on the fourth quarter driving, but a late fumble by the Wildcats that was recovered by Texas sealed the Longhorns' victory, and ended up winning by that said score, 34-27. Kind of making Texas now the new number 2. Then we head out to Charlottesville, Virginia, where it was time for the South oldest rivalry between UVA and UNC. And this one I went with North Carolina. May is just one of these very good quarterbacks that doesn't get a lot of attention, probably because of the team he plays for some reason. He's not in the Heisman consideration, and he should be, because he puts up amazing stats. He was 7 yards shy of 300 yards, threw for 2 touchdowns, as Armstrong and the Cavaliers just would not go away. And I think it's part of the problem why North Carolina doesn't get a lot of attention, a lot of love, is every game they play is close. They do not blow anyone out. So that means their defense is susceptible, but the offense is bail them out. And basically, that's what you kind of look at this one. But I just look at it this way. It's a team that's built on to strive from adversity, from the struggles, to find a way to win. At the end of the day, it all matters if you win or lose. If you look at style points, then you're not looking at the overall product of the game. You're looking at if they win or not. That's all that matters. If you win, it gives you a chance to make an opportunity to possibly go and play in a playoff game or a high-profile bowl game, which gets you more recruits, more money, etc., etc. If you're 3-6 and you had this great victory over the number one team, this doesn't matter. You're 3-6. You're not going anywhere. But you're 8-1 and you have subpar wins. Yeah, you won't be ranked as high in 8-1 schools, but you're still being in consideration because you always win. You find ways to win. So far, North Carolina's only loss is to Notre Dame. So just kind of, throw that one out there. But kind of spoil this one, but North Carolina and Virginia were just going back and forth. North Carolina was a little bit better in the end, ended up winning 31-28. Do continue their march to Charlotte because they're 5-0 in their division. I don't think anyone else is going to catch them. Okay, go from there. Then we head back out to Kansas. This time we'll head out to Jayhawk country, whereas the Jayhawks play host Oklahoma State. Both of these schools are on a massive losing streak. I was like, okay, this is time for Oklahoma State's losing streak to end. Boy, was I wrong. This was just a old-fashioned butt whooping put on by the Jayhawks. They went up 24-7 at the half. They did not look back. They were just all over Oklahoma State. It didn't matter what they were doing, what anything could do. Neal was just a phenomenal athlete for the Jayhawks. He had over 200 yards rushing and over 100 yards receiving with one touchdown. As Kansas just ended Oklahoma State's chances possibly of making a Big Ten title game, beating them 37-16. And giving me another loss to the season. Then we head down to Tulsa, Oklahoma, where the Golden Hurricanes playing host to the Green Wave at Tulane. Now, this one I went with Tulsa because Tulsa has a lot of offensive weapons I thought would be very good against Tulane. And I wasn't really quite sure about Tulane yet because so far, like one of their marquee wins is against Kansas State. So they don't have a big name opponent they've beaten yet. Maybe we'll get that a little bit later when they take on Cincinnati. I think they got UCF coming up too, if I'm not mistaken. They lose them both. That's going to change a whole lot of things. But Tulane was just a little bit too much for Tulsa. Nothing. Just fireworks. They did just enough to win. They were scoring touchdowns, but Tulsa doing field goals is basically what's the difference. And Tulane ended up winning 27-13. We head out to Raleigh, North Carolina, where NC State is playing host to Wake Forest in the classic matchup between these two. Now, these two programs probably won't see any chance of making the ACC championship game because they're in the same division as Clemson. And they've both already lost to Clemson. These are two very good programs. Hartman, a phenomenal quarterback as he is, was just slinging the rock as he best possibly could. He was going blow for blow with NC State. I mean, it was a very close matchup in the first half. It was only 17-14 Wolfpack, which is going to look to be a phenomenal finish between these two. The third quarter was a different story altogether, where NC State was able to shut down Wake Forest temporarily and get them that little bit of cushion and get them to 27. But Perry and Hartman were just a dynamic duo between the two. Almost 160 yards receiving and a touchdown for Perry, and there wasn't enough. NC State was able to hold on and beat Wake Forest 30-21 to ensure they probably stay in the top 25 and Wake Forest probably find his way out. Then we head out to Memphis, where the Tigers are playing host to the UCF. UCF had a great win the previous week against Cincinnati to get back in the national spotlight once again after stumbling early. This is one of these games I was like, okay, it's going to be UCF. I think Memphis is going to make this a game of it, and they did. Memphis was make sure they scored every single quarter, which is what you want to do. Hennigan was over 280 yards passing, but only had one touchdown, which kind of negates things. And Harvey for UCF had over 150 yards rushing with only one touchdown. As UCF was out to outpace UCF or Memphis and beat them 35-28 to get that matchup between the the Knights now and the Green Wave to be a very important matchup between those two. Then we have to Purdue as they're playing host to Iowa. Now, this one I was going with Purdue because the way they've been actually performing since their collapse up in Syracuse weeks ago. And Iowa's offense has really yet to manifest itself in a consistent basis yet. Now, I knew it was going to be a defensive game between these two. Just how these two programs are. They're built on defense, and then offense comes later. But Iowa's offense showed up. They dominated Purdue. Went up 17-3 at the half. Didn't look back. Petraeus, not very much. 192 yards, 2 touchdowns. It was all really Johnson. Caleb Johnson on the ground for the Hawkeyes. He had 200 yards and a touchdown as Iowa went in there, beat up Purdue 24-3 to make that Big Ten West a close showing. As now there's like 4 teams, all 3-3 in that division, right behind the Illini, who have 2 losses and as well in conference play. But the Illini has beaten most of those schools that are right behind them. So their game against Purdue coming up is going to be huge. Not only is that a huge rivalry game for them, but it's also one of those games that you're going to have to look at to see if the Illini can actually clinch the division. Those were my games, and my lord, I was horrible. Only won 5 of the games. Air Force, Georgia, NC State, North Carolina, UCF. Those are the only wins I had on one hand. That was just bad. There's a lot of things wrong with this past weekend with those games, and there's nothing I can really say to really change anything in that aspect, but it's been a wild weekend all around. I mean, you had Liberty going to Arkansas, beat them. I mean, who really saw that one happening? The game I want to talk about, Boise State and BYU. BYU in a beating Boise State. And apparently college basketball has already started as SMU beat Houston on the hardwood 77-63. No, that was a football matchup between these two old Southwest Conference rivals. And my lord, I mean, somebody forgot to tell the defense to actually show up. I think they got like freshman squad or some, Pee-wee football defensive players out there because they were just doing whatever they wanted to do. Whatever they wanted to do, they did. And Mordecai for SMU had 9 passing touchdowns. 9. Setting a school record as well as a conference record with those 9 touchdowns. Toon was right behind him with 7 passing touchdowns. I mean, these guys were just being ridiculous in terms of the stats. I mean, when SMU scored 56 points in the first half, I mean, this was like, playing, NCAA 14, and you're just trying to see how many points you can actually score. I mean, it was just a ridiculous aspect. I mean, 56-35 at the half. What the hell? It didn't look like, a little bit of defense kind of played in the factor because they only were able, the pretty much averaged 2 touchdowns per quarter, except for the third quarter where SMU only got the 1. But, Toon had 527 passing yards, 7 touchdowns, but 3 picks. Mordecai, 379 yards, 9 touchdowns. I mean, how do you look at this aspect? I mean, it was just ridiculous. And not to mention, each team also had 2 rushing touchdowns on top of that. Redding for SMU was got the hat trick. Got 3 receiving touchdowns. And then Marlin and then Rice also received a pair as well. Goffney had 100 yards receiving with a touchdown. If you look at Houston, a couple with 2 touchdowns were Nathaniel Dale and Sam Brown, both of them picking up a pair. Dell had 180 yards receiving. And then the next one behind him is Keshawn Carter. He had 136 yards receiving and a touchdown. And then behind him, 105 yards went to Matthew Golden. He also had a touchdown. Rushing yards, they both had 100-yard rushers. Toon ran for over 100 yards again with another touchdown, so he had to have it 8 all day. Mordecai, without being outdone, also had a rushing touchdown to have 10 total. And then Tyler Levine had 146 yards on the ground with a touchdown. I mean, there is just nothing you can do. And it's only a total of 3 sacks the entire game for them. And then that much tackles for losses. It was just a offensive showing between these two programs. And it's a shame that Houston will be moving to the Big 12 here in a couple of years. It'll kind of take away some of the fun you would get with this old Southwest rivalry game like this. But wow, if you like offense, and this was the game for you to watch. So, but that was just one of those interesting games that you're just like, what's going on? But with that being said, let's just go ahead and break out the brand new Eliminator. Now, with my brand new Eliminator, I'm down to now 2 slides. I have my bubble slide, which has your 2 lost Power 5 schools, your 1 lost Group of 5 schools, and then the other schools, you probably the ones you more likely probably see in the finals. That's separate between undefeated and 1 lost schools, 1 lost Power 5 schools, by the way. And I will actually start removing programs as they see fit. So once when the bowl teams gets eliminated, they're gone. And then once the teams drop down that position, that's when they're going to show up. So here's the new bottom 10, as you can see, as they currently stand, and the new top 10 as they currently stand. As you see, that's I already say top 10, but the top portion of the Eliminator, as you see, the 1 loss schools are getting a little bit thinner. So then we'll go back to the bottom, to the bubble, and you'll see a lot more schools get eliminated. Now, unfortunately, I left South Carolina in there by accident. They should not still been in there, so they've been eliminated for a bit. So unfortunately, they're gone. But K-State's lost and Oklahoma State's lost in the Big 12 hurt them. Oregon State losing to Washington. No, first they eliminated them. Of course, Wake losing to NC State. So kind of dwindled that one down. And then Syracuse losing to Pitt. You still leave the 3 Group of 5 programs. Well, I think Liberty and Tulane probably have the edge over Coastal Carolina because they've beaten Power 5 schools. Coastal has yet to do that. So Coastal will be kind of looking on the outside in. And then you look at the top portion, as you see, 2 undefeated programs will be stepping down below that black line to join the 1 loss programs, and Alabama is now on the bubble. It all depends on what happens towards the end. Maybe they get, somehow win the SEC West. LSU double somewhere. Highly doubt that one. The Illini still has the possibility of winning the Big Ten. Highly doubt that one either. But as you can see, this is how things kind of play out, and we'll kind of go from there. And it kind of leads me to the updated My Power Index Top 25. As you all know, it's a whole strange formula that I put out there, so it does kind of base more on your record, but also kind of goes in, okay, who have you played, who have you beaten. So it kind of goes to your strength of schedule, strength of victory, and all that aspect. As we'll start off with the bottom part of this poll. As you see, These first 5 entrants will make the first appearances in my top 25 here. As you see, UCF jumps into number 25. Ahead of them is Troy. I understand Sunbelt's not getting a lot of love in the other polls, so because they haven't really played much in terms of some of the other Sunbelt programs. We've seen them play much outside of playing against those Power 5 programs. But there it is. Notre Dame actually returned to the top 25. Now beating 2 ranked opponents back to back, especially beating Clemson. It really helps that strength of victory out. Texas makes it return back to my top 25, as well as Washington, who was sneakily kind of sneaking back into the Pac-12 title picture, as everyone kind of overlooked them. At number 20, they're at Liberty. Had a huge win against Arkansas. They only moved up 5 positions in this poll. Tulane, despite their win, actually dropped to 19 because they beat Tulsa. So actually beating a team actually kind of does hurt you if they have a losing record. Coastal moves up to number 18 with their victory. Illinois drops to number 17 after getting upset by Michigan State. That's because they have more of a chance to control their destiny and make the Big Ten title game. NC State moves up to number 16. Penn State moved up to 15. Probably no chance of them making anywhere, but they'll make things kind of interesting, to say the least. 14 will go to Utah as they move up there. LSU now jumps up to 13 from 18 with their victory over Alabama. Now we go to the top portion of this. Number 12 is, for aforementioned Alabama. Now understand why Alabama ranked over LSU. Strength of schedule, strength of victory. That's all it really is. There's like very few finite details between the two. Alabama's slightly better in some of those aspects. Is that Alabama's yet to play FCS school, but they have one coming up. Even though strength of victory and strength of schedule is actually more in favor of LSU, but because they've yet to play the FCS program, that's why Alabama's slightly ahead, plus an overtime loss to LSU kind of kept them ahead. But don't worry, Alabama will ensure to rectify the situation later on when they play an FCS school towards the end of the season. Number 11 goes to North Carolina. Slow and steady. They keep climbing up the poll. They were 13th last week. Now they moved to 11. They're getting up there. It's just part of one half the ACC title game. Ole Miss stays at number 10. They didn't play, but they didn't lose any ground either, which is beneficial for them. Oregon maintains number 9. Of course, playing Colorado, whooping them up doesn't really help you out that much. UCLA leapfrogs them both, goes to number 8, even though they struggled against Arizona State. Same way USC, who's at number 7, struggled in their game. But that gives you a nice logjam right there. 3 Pac-12 schools, all at 8-1. That could give you a Pac-12 could still have a 2-loss conference champion, because you still got Utah and Washington in the mix as well. Because Utah has beaten USC but lost to UCLA. And they all have 1 loss in conference play, all behind Oregon, who has yet to lose in conference. So, if you want to look at it, it's actually Oregon and UCLA is going to be the top 2 right now playing for the conference title if it ended right now. All right, so the first, look at the top 6. Once again, you don't see any change in schools, just change in positions. Tennessee stays at number 6, even though they lost to Georgia. It's just their body of work so far has kept Tennessee up that position. Clemson, after getting upset by Notre Dame, only drops to number 5 in this poll. I know a lot of other polls have Clemson a lot further down because how they got manhandled by Notre Dame. Completely understandable. Right now, my playoff 4 is TCU at 4. Michigan jumps to number 3. Georgia moves to 2, and Ohio State is 1. Hey, just let me know down below what you thought this past weekend. I mean, this was a shocker of a lot of games. especially for if you're Alabama or a Illini fan. You definitely didn't see those games coming. Ohio State struggled in Northwestern. That's mainly because of the weather. You saw Michigan struggle against Rutgers early. I mean, it's proof that there's no dominant team in college football landscape. Now, I understand people are going to say, no, well, Georgia. Yeah, look what they did against Mizzou. They weren't exactly, steamrolling them. It took them a whole half to, go pop as you remove their heads from a certain body orifice. And you looked at Michigan, Ohio State. They've all had games they struggled against. They looked at their out conference, especially for Michigan, their out conference schedule, not so great. TCU. They don't dominate anyone. They just outgun them. Same thing with Tennessee. You saw how they handled Georgia. They were pretty bad. Alabama they were right there with Alabama, back and forth. Clemson's the exact same way. Oregon have to get blown out by Georgia, has won consistently, but who they've really beaten. They really kind of say, hey, Oregon's up there. Same thing with USC. They've shown flaws here and there. So there's no dominant team out there. It's really who can win at the end of the game. End of the day, who wins? Does it have to be pretty? No, it doesn't. It's all the fact that you get the W. If you get the W, you get the win. That means you get closer to earning your shot at a conference championship, which means you have a better shot at making it to the college football playoff. That's what we have to look at. Right now, there's a lot of good teams. Just look at the 4 are undefeated. We'll be down to 3 eventually, especially after Ohio State, Michigan face off at the end of the year. Maybe we won't have that many undefeated teams by that time frame. Will we get a 2-loss participant in the college football playoff? Well, if LSU wins SEC. There are so many questions coming down. It's coming down the wire. This is the perfect time. This is why we kind of watch college football. It makes things exciting. You kind of find out, trying to play the what-if scenarios, trying to see who can get in, who can't get in. And just let me know down below which game, like I said, attracted you the most. Once you're there, make sure you hit the thumbs up once again. You can share this video with your friends and family. It really helps promote this video out. Once you subscribe, make sure you hit that bell notification. Let you know the next time I post any more content on my channel. And I will see you next time on Chat Sports Talk.